The moment people hear that, the moment people hears the word confession in a murder trial, people always think that the case is over. Case closed, guilty, end of story. But in a courtroom, a confession is not that simple. Do you guys understand that? The moment some people hear the word confession, in a murder trial, most people think the case is over, case closed, guilty, end of the story. But in the courtroom, a confession is not that simple. Hi, my name is Nonima Tigela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, please stick around, watch, learn, assist, and please like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you. Now let's get into this video. In fact, sometimes the way a confession is taken can become one of the most explosive battles in an entire trial. And that exact question is now raising serious debate in legal circles because the issue isn't just what was said. The real question is who took the confession and how it was taken. To understand why this matters so much, you need to understand one crucial thing about criminal law. There are two different ways a confession can be recorded, and the difference between them can determine whether that confession becomes powerful evidence or completely useless in court. The first type of confession is the strongest one possible. This happens when a suspect appears before a magistrate or a judge, not a police officer, not the investigating team, a neutral judicial officer. When that happens, the magistrate must ask a series of very strict questions. Was the confession made freely and voluntarily? Were there any threats, pressure, or promises? Does the accused understand their rights? Do they understand they are not forced to speak at all? Only after all those questions or safeguards are confirmed will the magistrate record the confession. And when that happens, courts usually consider that confession extremely reliable because it was taken outside the influence of the police investigation. But then there is the second type of confession. And that is where things start to get complicated. Sometimes confessions are arranged through police officers, including officers involved in the investigations. And this is where the defense lawyers immediately raise a red flag. Red quilts, red curtains, red everything, okay? And because of that, because the defense will ask a very simple question: why was the confession taken through investigators instead of a magistrate? Why was the suspect not taken to an independent judicial officer? Why was there pressure involved? Was the suspect influenced? Was the confession truly voluntarily? Or was it manufactured under circumstances the court cannot fully trust? These are the small questions, right? These are the small questions when you hear them, right? They sound very small. Guess what? They are not small questions. They are massive legal battles. Because if a judge decides that a confession was not properly obtained, the consequences are enormous. Enormous that confessions can be declared inadmissible. In other words, the court may simply throw it out completely. Imagine that impact of the impact of that, and an entire prosecution case can suddenly lose one of the most powerful pieces of evidence. And that is exactly why defense lawyers often focus intensely on procedure. Many people watching are always checking on watching this trial think the lawyers are arguing over technicalities, right? But those so-called technicalities are actually the foundation of a fair trial. Because in criminal law, it's not enough to say someone confessed. The law demands something far stricter. The state must prove that the confession was made freely, voluntarily, and without influence. That is why courts look very closely at who recorded the confession. Was it done before a magistrate, or was it done through the investigating team itself? And when that question arises, the courtroom atmosphere can change instantly, because now the issue is no longer just about accused person. It becomes about the conduct of the investigation itself. Did the police follow the correct procedure? Did they respect the rights of the accused? Or did they take shortcuts that could undermine the entire case? These are the kinds of questions that can turn an ordinary legal argument into a full courtroom confrontation. Because once the defense begins challenging, challenging all of this, then things become critical. Things become critical. These are the kind of questions that can turn ordinary legal arguments into full courtroom confrontations. Because once the defense begins challenging the legitimacy of a confession, everything else starts to shake. Witness credibility, investigation methods, and even the overall strength of the prosecution's case. And suddenly the court is forced to confront the deeper issue. Is the confession solid evidence? Or is it something that should never have been admitted in the first place? That is why experienced lawyers say one thing again and again: a confession is powerful, but only when the law is followed to the letter. If the letter is not, then, because when procedure is ignored, the law does not protect the confession. The law protects the accused. If procedure, because if the procedure is ignored, the law does not protect the confession. The law protects the fairness of the trial, the accused person, and that is the most. That is the moment when a single question can shake an entire courtroom. Not what was said, but how it was obtained. That is why there is back and forth. That is why you see Baloyi doing all of this, trying to make sure Mjiako sticks on Ntanzi. Mjiako was Ntanzi's lawyer, but Baloyi failed to bring Mjiako to. After Ntanzi said, Mjiako was never my lawyer, I never contacted no Mjiako, but Bongani Ntanzi was saying, I have nothing to do with Mjiako. Baloyi was supposed to bring Mjiako. Did he? Why? Why did you not bring Mjiako? Why did Baloyi not bring Mjiako if Baloyi believes in Mjiako? If Baloyi believes that this confession is legit, if Baloyi has no fears, if Baloyi is trusting his own case, if Baloyi believes that Ntanzi actually spoke to Mjiako, why is Mjiako not part of the puzzle? Why is Mjiako not here to defend himself and show us his mandate, the instructions, the phone calls, etc.? Why is Mjiako? In fact, furthermore, why is Mjiako's Section 205 not part of the equation? Why? So Baloyi's case is full of why. Baloyi's case, in my view, is full of reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is breathing heavily in this state case, and Baloyi knows it. That is why he is standing there sweating, because he's like, Ntanzi is like holding on to him like nobody's business. It's not even funny. It's not even something to joke about, because Ntanzi umbambe ngawo so. Umbambe ka so. Akakwazi nokunyakaza. What are your thoughts when it comes to this, guys? I want you to speak to me in the comment section. Tell me, do you think Baloyi has a case here? Do you think Baloyi still needs to continue? Because 2 weeks down, nothing. 2 weeks down, nothing. He proved nothing. He could not do anything. So I want to hear your views when it comes to all of that. Let's talk. Please do not forget to like, to share, to comment, and most importantly, please make sure you are subscribed on the channel. Thank you so much. I will see you on our next video. Bye-bye.